Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to answer a question that a student had asked me. Very good question, in fact, which is, should I, or should anybody really in general, be training their external rotators, the shoulder external rotators? It's a great question. I don't often get anybody asking me or even referring to the external shoulder rotators, and it's one of the muscle groups that I have always recommended, particularly for weightlifters, for bodybuilders and power lifters, for sure. And I'll get into the reason here in a second. But um, but I've always, over the years, I've always recommended, and if I'm training those type of athletes, always recommend that they train their external rotators. The two most notable or primary external rotators at the shoulder are the teres minor and the infraspinatus. Now, yes, of course, we could say that the rear head of the deltoid acts as an external rotator, depending upon the relative position of the humerus. So you could say sure, right? And I could make an argument for any number of muscles in the back that cross over the shoulder and make an argument for their being active as external rotators. However, without digging too deep into electromyographical stuff, which is how you have to test it, it's clear just from biomechanics that it's really the main external rotators at the shoulder, teres minor, infraspinatus. Both of those muscles, a couple of characteristics. Number one, they're small muscles, right? Just relative to their antagonistic counterparts, the internal rotator and all the muscles noted as internal rotators. So technically, they're relatively weak, smaller than their antagonistic counterparts. And that is basically the reason why I always have recommended external rotator work for athletes, weightlifters in particular. Now, even when I've trained track and field, mainly field athletes, right? So javelin and discus and shot put, those type of athletes, I've recommended that they do so as well, simply to ensure that there's a balance between the muscular strength and shoulder balancing that's necessary, particularly in the off season. But again, I'll kind of shift back over to the two main competitive or athletes, individuals, not doesn't have to be competitive, that should always be doing additional work on their external rotators. That's going to technically be bodybuilders, right? Weightlifters, bodybuilders, and powerlifters. And of course, the question is why, right? And the answer is very simple, that the prominent sort of primary muscles that are trained in the upper body over the shoulder joint are generally, if you think about it, are the deltoids, the pectoralis major, your chest, and your lats. And here's the interesting thing about the chest and the lats. I just got to give you a little bit, just go a little bit into the kinesiology. It's very, very simple. Nothing to get crazy over, but kinesiologically, both the pecs and the lats, although one is on the anterior part, right, the front of your body, and the other is back there, you would think that they are antagonistic muscles, and you would be correct, but over only a couple of kinesiological functions. So the kinesiological functions of the pecs, if you remember, are what? Adduction, flexion, and internal rotation of the humerus. You hear that word, internal. Look at the name of the video, right? Should I train the external rotators, right? So the pectoralis major, large, powerful muscles, right, act as internal rotators. Now, your lats, your latissimus dorsi, let's just use that large primary muscle that we work when we're doing training our back. The kinesiological function of the lats technically are what? They're going to be adduction, just like the pecs, extension at the shoulder. So therefore, they are antagonistic to the pecs, okay, from that kinesiological functional scenario. And they also act as internal rotators. So if you kind of listen to this now, I hope it makes sense. two of the largest muscles, two of the main muscles in your torso that work over the shoulders are internal rotators. Are there other primary and sort of intrinsic muscles at the shoulder? Absolutely, there are. But the very fact that your pectoralis major and your latissimus dorsi act as sort of, I guess you could say secondary. I don't like to because they're so powerful. They act as very powerful internal rotators at the shoulder. If you are training those muscles, as we see in bodybuilders, weightlifters in general, and power lifters for sure, training the external rotators to counteract the incredible power and overall strength development of these two major muscles as internal rotators, counterbalancing those with some external rotator work is, in my opinion, a necessity. Okay, so the answer to the question of should you train the external rotators, for me, if you're going to be doing pec work, by the way, let's move away from bodybuilders and powerlifters to the average client who you are training using pec exercises and back exercises. You know, a lot of trainers would tell me, well, I'm training antagonistic muscles, and my answer to that is, well, remember, the pecs and the lats are antagonistic in one kinesiological function, shoulder flexion versus shoulder extension. Okay, so yes, they are antagonistic in that respect, but they both act as adductors of the shoulder. And there are some, yes, rotational positional issues that could enhance or minimize those adduction kinesiological function issues that we're talking about. So one of the kinesiological functions is are antagonistic, flexion extension. However, just like they are both adductors of the shoulder, they are both internal rotators at the shoulder. And there is the answer. It's one of the reasons it was always very simple to me as I learned about anatomy, phys muscle function, and particularly my field of expertise that I went into, which was kinesiology and biomechanics, sports biomechanics. It became very clear that some of the injuries that I was seeing with athletes, higher level athletes, was due to this imbalance. So there was this internal rotation of the humerus when athletes would or individuals would just kind of stand there, and you can see it when you look at those individuals that are weightlifters in particular. You can see this slight internal rotation of the humerus coupled with shoulder girdle or shoulder protraction. So the two of those together are generally indicative of internal rotators that are way stronger and way out of balance with their external or antagonistic muscle, external rotator counterparts. All of that, to bring it around full circle, is for most clients that I've ever trained, and once I moved away from dealing with athletes to average everyday, right, apparently healthy individuals, I maintained this practice of during a pec workout, you know, chest, shoulder, and tricep workout or back work, it didn't really matter. To me, I would include 2 to 3 sets of generally 15 to 20 repetition external rotator movements. Now, the kind of the last part of this is to remember or keep in mind that from a kinesiological perspective, although the teres minor and the infraspinatus are both external rotators, they tend to have a higher or lower strength or power output based on the relative abduction or adduction of the shoulder. Meaning that if you do external rotator exercises with the elbow tucked in a shoulder adducted or fully adducted position, you're going to train generally the teres minor or the infraspinatus. You're going to put emphasis on one while getting both of them working, but that puts emphasis on one. So adduction, external rotation. This is why I do both. Then what I would do is move the client into an abducted position. In other words, I would lift the elbow up and then I would do external rotator work this way. So in general, teres minor and then the infraspinatus tends to be a little bit more active. They are both active during adducted external rotation or abducted external rotation. By the way, do not go heavy on any of these exercises. For me, I would do in general, I wouldn't take it to a point of fatigue as well. I just want my clients, particularly athletes, to do the movements and strengthen those muscles slowly but surely to counteract the powerful internal rotator capacity of these larger muscles. In doing that, I could do maybe 4 sets. So I would do 15 to 20 reps on each arm. Range of motion is also very important. As with most exercises that I have always done with clients and on myself, I do what most people would consider to be sort of a partial or limited range of motion. Now that I've done many other videos about the concept of range of motion and what is truly considered proper full range of motion, and it is not what most people think. In fact, what we consider full range of motion and what you'll see everywhere on the internet and in the gym is actually dangerous. And so my concept of partial range of motion is actually technically the safe full range of motion. And you can check some of the other videos I've done on that. Partial range of motion, to those that are not well versed in proper biomechanics and kinesiology of the human body. And then there's what I call full range of motion, which appears to be partial range of motion. And when you're doing external rotator work, you definitely want to keep the range of motion or the movement pattern very limited but controlled. No need to pause and hold or anything like that. Do the movement smooth and controlled, smooth and controlled. Keep your range of motion limited. Please do not be doing stuff like this and then all the way down this way. That is not only counterproductive, it's dangerous. You can hurt somebody. So I hope this is helpful. And by the way, if it is, type the word understand in the comment section below. Again, the answer to the question of should you be training the external rotators is I always do it, always have done it with clients, do it for myself. I'd make it a part of my normal once a week. Generally, it's once a week that I'll do them. A standard part of the normalized or counterbalancing of the strong internal rotators at the shoulder. So do them. Be careful. I do 15 to 20 repetitions for 1 or 2 sets on both arms. Let me know how it works for you. If you have questions, let us know in the comments section below. If you have not done so, of course, please subscribe to the channel and let us know how we can be of assistance. Have a great week. See you next week.